And we're back. I'm welcoming Karen Britt and Tara Crete. Is it Crete?
It's Crete,
It
just
is
like the Greek island. Yep.
Crete Islands. Karen, how are you this fine Friday?
I'm doing great. I want to give a shout out to the chat because those guys have been awesome. The people that have been in there, we had to make some changes, and since we've had great conversation in there, and a lot of people have started engaging with you. So let's give them a shout out.
Excellent. And my dogs are barking, so I'm going to be muting on and off. Tara, how are you?
I'm happy. Happy as always. Excited. Every day is a new day in this world. I'm always anxious but excited to see what the news brings and what's going to change and how much better we're going to get.
Right. Well, we've been talking about Title 42 and its abolishment and its effect on our nation, bringing in essentially not refugees, but terrorists and breaking down the United States of America. My next guest is my very best friend, whom I call my sister. She's like me in many different capacities, and her name is Susie Q. So I'm going to bring her in, and feel free to just, both of you just come on in there and ask questions. She's going to lead the conversation right now and introduce yourself to you. Susie.
Hey.
How are you?
Good. How's everybody?
So Karen, would you like to tell Susie who you are? I think she knows a bit about some stuff about you, but
she knows me. She's like, I haven't had a one-on-one conversation with her, but I've heard so much about her and from you, Penny, and I feel like I kind of know her.
Right? That's the object, for everybody to know everybody, and so we can disseminate information. Tara, why don't you say hi to Susie and tell her a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Susie. How are you? Very
Good.
Nice to meet you. I'm just a gal who started the podcast a couple of years ago. No training, no anything, just have something to say. And, if we can reach one person out there, I guess we're doing a good job. I like to have uplifting interviews and soul-stirring conversations. So really nice to meet all of you. Karen, I love your Southern accent.
Oh, thank you.
She doesn't have an accent.
A little bit.
What accent are you talking about? Okay, Susie Q, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience? They should know who you are by now because you're on every other Friday, but just say hello to everybody and tell them what you're up to.
I'm up to my neck in horse manure.
Because
we have a horse ranch. We have about 30 horses and maybe 30 something cows.
Wow.
And only like 16 dogs and 2 cats and
And Coyote Jane is Coyote Jane's pregnant, so everyone should know she's pregnant. She can't even move off the porch.
I don't know how, it's just one dog after another.
How did that happen? How did that happen?
I don't know.
We're
going to get everybody fixed so we don't keep doing this,
I was going to say, Penny, do we need to show you a graph? Do we need to show you a graph as to how this happens?
So yes. I mean, but we locked her up. She wasn't supposed to be.
Exactly. We had her pinned up, so I don't know. Accidents happen.
Right. He got her before we pinned her. So last night we had a girl party last night. Susie's talking about, telling the truth. Says Penny doesn't go anywhere. She pretty much stays in the house. She works like 18-hour days, which Susie works like 18-hour days. She goes to the dollar store to shop. That's it. And so we went out and we had a girl party last night. So I was working very late last night. I worked until about 2 a.m. So I'm a little tired because I get up around 5:30. Susie, what would you like to talk about today?
Well, I was thinking about everything that God has done for me and how he got me through, how it started. And, and then I just really want to give him the thanks for everything. Cause I wouldn't even be here if he hadn't, saved my life so many different times. And then I wouldn't have what I have if he hadn't showed me what to do or where to go or how to do it or bless me. So, I don't know how anybody could really make it in this world without God. I just, you know what I mean? I just don't.
I say that all the time, Susie. I wonder how people who wake up and don't have any kind of a faith in anything, I think it's really important to believe in some kind of God. And I think whether it's religion or spirituality, whatever your vein of connection is, I think it's so important to have that. And I really often wonder, and I feel bad for people who don't have any connection and who don't have any faith-based practice or anything. So I definitely mimic what you just said.
Yeah, because it's, it's like I see miracles all the time, and I see such awesome things, and I love that. I love seeing mysterious things happen, or I love seeing God move. I love seeing things that they say won't happen because God says it will happen. I like that. That's like, that supernatural realm. I like that,
Between Susie and I, like we're totally different people, but yet we're so much the same. Okay. So Susie is an individual. She's been in the horse industry. She's a cutting horse world champion. She's bought her own land since she was, how old? When did you first start buying your own land?
I was 22 when I bought my first property. Yeah.
Right. And me, I had everything taken from me because, money has not been a priority in my life, but neither has the concept of actually owning land, because I lived in California and I also toured across the United States and lived in hotels. So, the thought of actually owning land never impacted me. But this is a woman at 22. She starts, owning her own land, and then she starts building and building and building. And then every single place that she stayed at, she's bought, like Buck told her, buy low and sell high. She's went in there and worked her, excuse the vernacular, ass off every day. And
we do have an ass too. We have a donkey named Buster, and he is an ass.
I actually, I have a problem with Buster only because
he busts you in the ass. I know, because he's an ass.
And I don't understand why he did that. So we're at the arena when Susie built this beautiful arena, and she used to have her own hotel also, and she had her own grill. It was called the Mustang Grill. And so Buster is she saves wild animals, also wild rescue. And so Buster's like, he's really sweet. He comes up to you, puts his head on your shoulder. But now when he follows me around, I run.
Because he wants you to pet him like a dog. That's why he's trying to get attention. So
not just even that, but it's
he
just
bites you in the butt.
So we were I was standing over by the new arena, and he came up to me. I'm like, oh, Buster. And then I said, all right. And I turned around, and literally he pushed me into the arena in my ass. And I was like, what does that mean? What does it mean when an ass pushes you in the ass? What is he saying? What is he saying to me?
Maybe a donkey is like your spirit animal or something.
Right. He's like pushing me forward, or, he didn't knock me over or anything, but still, Susie is a horse master. And me, when I go to get groceries and I come back and the horses are surrounding me, I'm like, Susie, and I won't even get out of the truck, and I take a wide berth around them, where she's a person in command of this sphere of her life. So I say Susie builds cities, and I build PowerPoints. I come from a different, like, you understand exactly what I'm saying, Karen. Britt, you're laughing because you're an executive producer. And it's like, what does an executive producer even do? Oh, we produce. Okay. How many shows do you work for, Karen?
I got to get the picture out of my head of you getting asked by ass.
Right. I got asked by an ass master. It disturbed me even today. That was like a year ago.
I just have to get a video of that next time it happens,
No, it's not going to happen again, Susie. Okay.
We're going to watch Buster. Yeah.
It's not going to happen again. So Susie also is very well known for breeding border collies. She's had people that flew into her ranch to get one of her border collies, and some of them have been used in search and rescue. We had one that was born here, which I told everybody he joined the FBI because he was going off in search and rescue. He looked like an FBI dog, didn't he, Susie? Kind of looked like an FBI dog. It looked like he had like a little FBI tag on him. And so we have like videos of all the babies being born, and we love each and every animal that's on this ranch. She's got, cattle, and she's a very spiritual individual. She read the Bible 7 times. She looks for ancient texts in, to try and figure out what did the Vatican hide from us? She also is like me in the aspect where she has dreams that came true like the next day. At one point, didn't you say that Jesus came to you and said, erase everything, I'm going to teach you again?
Yeah. He said, he said, forsake everything and follow me. And I said, that's easy. I've already done that. He said, no, I want you to like take an eraser, erase everything everybody's ever taught you. And we're going to start all over and I'm going to teach you.
Wow.
So it wasn't, it was not your, let's say, traditional church teaching, but
Thank God for that.
the church has elements of what Jesus, like they like took little things that Jesus said and then put it in their book, but they didn't take the whole story. And then they kind of changed some of it.
And then they interpreted it for you. They had
Well,
the
like-
pastors interpret it, and
Like
then
when it
and then
said,
they try to
you know,
tell you
like
what
the
Jesus
fish and
was saying
loaves.
to you.
It said like Jesus divided the fish and loaves. It wasn't, it was grapes and loaves. It wasn't fish. Okay, but the church changed the story to fit their narrative, you know, because the Romans were meat eaters and alcohol drinkers, so they had to put that into the book. So they had to change a few things to make their religion. So that's what Christians follow, is the Roman religion. All roads lead to Rome, all of them.
Tara?
That means
I have
Christian
a
roads.
question about that. So I always wonder, because I don't have a particular religion. I don't fit into a box. Like
Yeah, I believe all religions are fake.
I have a very deep reverence, a connection with universe and God. I do. But it's not religious. So, but I know so many people, I know many people who that is their path and they find solace in that. And it does so good for them. But my challenge with the Bible is, like you were just saying, Susie, so much was left on the cutting room floor. Allegedly, I think, I mean, I don't know, you're the expert probably. There was like a spate of years that we don't know where Jesus was. And he had gone off, and I think probably learning a lot of esoteric things, maybe quantum mechanics, maybe yoga, maybe plant medicine. I mean, who knows? And what do people say about those books that were not included in the Bible, like the Gnostic version?
Right, because
Jesus did.
exactly. I mean, but you know, your typical Christian, you know, they're, you know, most of them are raised in a Christian home, so it's generational. And then they usually go to a local church, and it's very minimal, and it's a very simple message that they stick to, unless it's in a, you know, it depends on which denomination they choose. So say Baptists will talk about the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, where the Pentecostals, they say that Jesus is God, which Jesus is not God, because he was the Son of God, and he talked to the Father. But this is where all the divisions start within the Christian religion, start separating. And so you have there's a lot of, they don't believe the same things, even though everybody calls themselves Christians. They're not on the same page, not even close to being on the same page.
I have a story, short story. When I went to go see Stella Adler, I studied under Stella Adler. She is a prolific teacher. She's dead now. She was like 1,000 years old when I was studying under. She's like, she's very old. Okay. She's taught Robert De Niro, and Karen's laughing. She was, okay. She was like really old. She would sit in a chair like a throne. And then she would say to people, you might as well slit your throat and kill yourself. You'll never be an actress. I mean, she was like just really archaic. But so I studied under her. And here's where we talk about division. She and Lee Strasberg studied under Stanislavski. Now, Stanislavski, that wasn't even his name. Okay. He was Russian royalty. They changed his name. And I think he started a Russian theater in obviously in Russia. He took 40 years to develop method acting, which I believe is actually a form of spy training and MK Ultra training, because you're learning as an actor to be a spy. Essentially, you're learning how to assume different personalities, etc. So the division, when you had to choose a school that you wanted to go to, you could go to Circle in the Square Theater, and you could start performing with like individuals which came through, like George C. Scott. They would come and they'd give you lectures, or you go to Stella Adler, or you go to Lee Strasberg, and they all taught a variant of this original method. So they all took, like, they said, oh, you can't use your past because when you're like, 7, your past isn't fast enough to extract information to use that as an acting methodology, right? And then the other one says, no, you need to use your imagination because your imagination is very vast. But essentially what they did was they each took a piece of the method acting, and they created schools based upon this. So I would see that divergence within any collective community as a way to monetize, if you will, right? Everybody gets a piece of the money, and then they propagate their little version of it. And all this is doing is
And what is it called? It's called King James, which his last name was Stewart. So James Stewart's version.
right. And I think all it's doing is serving to keep you away from your connection to God. Susie?
Right.
She froze.
So it's their version. And but you have to read that title on that book. It tells you it's a version of somebody's religion.
And then you have the pastors that go in there, and then they start interpreting for you. So I say, you know what? I don't need any intercessors. That's what the priest did. The priest said,
that's why people have to choose what version you want to believe in. You have to choose the version you want to believe in. And if you choose James Stewart's version, it's not necessarily the God's version. Okay, it's a man's version. But people get confused because they say, well, isn't it the word of God? Well, some of it is, but not, I'm going to say maybe 50% of it is, maybe.
Karen, what
half
did you want to say? Karen?
Well, I mean, I did my study on it, and King James was a homosexual.
Yes, not only was he gay, but I believe that he actually tortured his victims.
Well, if you look at the Old
Testament, I'm sorry, go ahead, Susie.
So if you just look at the Old Testament, because there are a whole lot of books in there, but the stories are about people and their lives, right? And so it's supposed to be about them and their relationship with God. But it clearly says there's multiple gods mentioned in that book. So, but those stories, if you follow those people, they're like David Koresh, or because David Koresh, his life literally mimicked the people in the Bible, because if you read every major player in the Old Testament, he married his sister or he married his cousin, every one of them. And so whenever people talk about incest, I say, yeah, that's biblical.
It's so interesting what Karen said about King James. I had never heard that, but I didn't even raise an eyebrow. I'm just like, that takes so much now to shock us, doesn't it? Unfortunately. But what is, and this is going to sound like a judgment, and I do not mean it to be, or maybe it is, and I don't realize it. But after the 80s, when that big story came out up in Boston and Philadelphia about the Catholic Church and the exposure of pedophilia, rampant pedophilia in the Catholic churches. And that's when the truth, in that wonderful show called Spotlight. It was a really great movie with Mark Ruffalo, and it detailed this true story. So I think all of us know now about the majority of the Catholic Church and what they're about. I think it's just a big front for pedophiles to go in and do what they want to do. So here's my question. I wonder how, and this is what I think might sound like a judgment, but I would really love to know, how can someone still follow that faith when they know that even if their priest is not complicit, even if their priest isn't doing these bad deeds? I don't believe that every priest is bad. I really, really, I don't think you can generalize with any kind of a subject or a system. But how do you go to church every week knowing that that priest knows what goes on in his community? and they move people around. I'm just curious about that when there are so many other religions and faiths out there that people could, belong to.
Yes, I actually got blocked by Jack Posobiec, who I actually like
Posobiec?
because I asked. Yes, is that how you say it? Posobiec? I can
I
never
think
say
so.
it.
Posobiec, yeah.
I actually got blocked because I asked that question because he's a Catholic, and I was like, "How
Oh,
can you be?"
really?
Yes, I was like, "How can you be a Catholic?" And so I apologize, Jack. I'm really sorry.
No, I think it's a real question. I would love to know what people think.
It's probably the way I posed it was kind of
Okay.
angry, so I just want to say I'm sorry, Jack.
According to everything that I've researched and put together, like you take all the religions in like a puzzle and you put it together, it appears that each little denomination within the Christian belief system, literally, when you put it together, it's Catholic. So the Catholic Church is the mother of religion. So every little bit of every group that comes that appears on the scene comes out of that church. So basically they're like little Catholics versus the big Catholic Church, because it's the belief system or the structure of the religion itself that these little churches are all coming out of. So if you go back in history and you look at Martin Luther, he came out of the Catholic Church. He became what they know Protestant, means to protest some of the things that they didn't always agree with. So then they formed their own denomination, and then denominations came out of that, and they just kept coming out until you end up with the Pentecostals at the far end of the spectrum. You go, as far as I can see, the United Pentecost, the UPC churches are the furthest out, because their belief system, if you don't believe certain things, you're going to go. Like if you're not filled with the Holy Ghost speaking in tongues, and if you're not baptized in the name of Jesus, you're going to hell. You can't get baptized in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. But the thing of it is, they like exclude the Father. I mean, they exclude the Holy Spirit when they do that. So they go to extremes, is what I'm saying. And then they form these little sects and these little groups, and then they put this fear on these people. If you don't believe this way, you're going to go to hell. If you leave our church, you're going to go to hell. If you're in error if you follow them, so there's a lot of condemnation, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of hellfire. I mean, so people are afraid. They don't want to go to hell. People's lives are being targeted by the devil. So these people are running to these churches for help. They're running to, this is what they're looking for help, but they're looking in the wrong places. They're going to men and religious, and they're getting sucked into it.
Searching for love in all the wrong places.
Huh?
Searching for love in all the wrong places.
Instead of going to God because you actually love, there's it's mind
You're
control.
Cutting in and out, Susie. You're cutting in and out.
It's mind control at its very best.
Yeah, it's fear-based. Everything you were just talking about, completely fear-based.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the platforms that I'm in. We're discussing this stuff and bringing people in. So one of the things that's going on with the Quest for Truth, East Coast Hub, my own, on other people's show, and we're discussing this. And here's one of the issues. Like the other day, I was on breaking religious taboos. So I'm talking about how to break the taboos, and talking about and here's what's happening: the babies. And look, let me go back to something. Just because I said King James was gay, I'm not banging on gay people, right? But I'm just saying, you're reading the Bible, the religious people are reading the Bible and hating on gay people, but you're reading a Bible that comes from a gay person, right?
Not just gay. Also
so what you freaking out on?
So
demonology. The Stewarts had to marry their family member to stay a Stewart, to stay a king. So it's incest. I mean, it's just
Susie
one
tried to explain that to make me
another.
feel better when I found out my brother slept with me, which I didn't know.
I told Penny, it's just biblical.
I was like, really? That's not comforting, because he was my agent in the 90s. I didn't find out that I went to my ex-husband and I said that I'm related to him. I didn't I didn't think, I said I'm related to the Baumgartner name. He's like, yeah, you're related, all right. He's your brother. And I was like, what?
Okay, Karen, what were you saying?
Well, I was just saying the platforms that I'm on, we're talking about that. And what's happening is the church in the comments and stuff, they're attacking people that I interview, or they have their own
Right.
shows, because they're bringing more truth to light, and it doesn't fit in their narrative or their belief system. So these
Right.
people are getting hit pretty hard, and I bring those same people on my shows, right? So to yesterday, when day before yesterday, when I was on another show, I was saying this: the babies are trying to teach the people who are searching out truth, and it's like precept upon precept upon precept. They're telling us y'all are a bunch of new agers, right? And I'm like, okay, so we were talking about divination, when the Bible says, divination, this, don't do that. Well, the father was talking about divination on a scope of pagan divination, not
Well,
divine
let's go
divination.
back to why King James had that put in his Bible. Because first off, King James, okay, so the story goes that one day King James found out about a person who could create storms with their mind.
Mm.
He became so afraid of people who had this kind of power.
Right?
So
I would have been dead.
he outlawed. He had his men look for anybody who was spiritual, who had dreams, who had gifts, and he hunted them down and he killed them all. He
Yeah.
killed 80,000 people, and people don't even know this guy who printed this Bible killed and murdered 80,000 people unjustly.
But he's a man of God.
No, he was almost, well, I mean, I'm
No,
saying
he was his
I'm
God.
saying
We know who his God was, Tara. His
I
I
God
don't know
was
what God he was
Satan.
the,
As a matter of fact,
the
his,
God of,
his
but
deputy,
yeah.
his
I'm
deputy
not sure what
assistant,
God his God was, but
his deputy
Yeah.
assistant was Seton, Satan. So when his deputy assistant would go to these people that were actually, using plants to heal people, and then were having actual visions because they were talking to God, and they were finding out events, and they found out that who he was, and then you have his deputy assistant come to your door and knock on the door. Who is it? I'm the king's representative. He wants you to come to dinner. Okay, what's your name? Satan. What?
God.
Your name is Satan? You're not. You're actually like knocking on my door, asking me to dinner, because I'm thinking, am I gonna be dinner? Because maybe I don't want to go because your name is Satan. Seriously, is that your name, dude? Right? I have to bring Susie back in. She's having some problems.
Well, look at
Yes.
this, Penny. Look
I'm
at
back.
this, Penny. Like when we're talking about divination, okay, church folks, let's go with this for a minute. And these are the issues that I bring up. You're talking about divination. Don't do it. Don't call upon, okay. All right. You're sitting up in the church now giving people prophetic words. I'm here, the Father saying, okay, divine, prophetic, divination. Okay.
The word
Gems
divination
show
has
up.
the word divine in front of it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Here's another thing. Okay. Stones, gems show up in the church. It's a move of God. Everybody's worshiping. I pull out a crystal and I'm a new ager. Okay. Oil. People in church anointing people with oil. Okay.
Right.
I bring out a essential oil. You're a new ager. Okay.
Right.
And I go, and they'll go, well, it's corrupted. Okay. Well, let's go with that for a minute. That anointing oil that you're using here in the church is synthetic materials that it's made with. I'm using a pure oil, if you want to go with the health wise.
It's no different than one church condemning the other church because they
Right.
don't believe what they believe. It's just
Yeah.
another version of condemning the other guy because, you got to follow our church and our belief. Can't,
And see, what the message that we're trying to say is, even if somebody believes something that it doesn't necessarily resonate with you, put it on the shelf over here. It may come back around. But people in the church have got to start honoring other people, just honor people where they're at. Stop the arguing, stop like correcting people,
Stop the
especially
judgment.
right.
Yeah, I
And
have
just learn to love people for their differences and their uniqueness. Yeah.
one of my best friends. We've been friends since first grade. Became a born again Christian. She was a Catholic. It's funny, when we were younger, we used to have debates. I was a Protestant. I grew up in a Protestant church where our minister could get married, and our church was really fun. It was a really fun church. They told jokes, and it was just a really nice experience. Like I'm really grateful that I had church in my life. I was part of the youth groups and all this stuff. So she became a born again Christian at 19 years old. And she now is out of it 25 years later. And she admits it. It was a cult. She said these people taught her kids how to be judgmental and how to not love everyone else. She realizes it now that she came out of it. So I can say this because she tells me this all the time. I can't speak to it personally, but she said they're probably the most judgmental folks out there when it comes to religion.
Yeah, I basically say all religions are false. Did you have something that you wanted to bring in?
I just want to play this clip for you ladies and everyone else. It kind of follows along the lines of what I was mentioning before. When I saw this is from the movie's Three Billboards, and it's with Frances McDormand. And a priest goes to her home because she has these billboards up in the town because her daughter was murdered. And she's got these billboards up and it's offending the town. So the priest comes over to tell her to take them down. And I want you to hear this dialogue. It's fascinating. Do I hit play on my side, Penny?
Robbie, I think that midget wants to get in my pants. Father Montgomery.
Mildred, I'm sorry to be calling on you so late, but I must say Robbie has been the consummate host, despite his having had, as he was just telling me, somewhat of a tricky day at school.
Oh no, just some of the guys on the team was giving me crap.
Crap about what?
About the billboards, Mildred, which is what I've come to have a word with you about.
Oh, proceed.
I know how hard it's been for you, Mildred, this past year. We all do. And if there is ever anything that you need, we will be there for you, always. But the town also knows what kind of a man William Willoughby is. And the town is dead set against these billboards of yours.
Took a poll, did you, Father?
You know, Mildred, if you hadn't stopped coming to church, you'd have a little bit more understanding of the depth of people's feelings. I had more than a dozen people come up to me on Sunday. So yes, I took a poll. Everybody is with you about Angela. Nobody is with you about this.
You know what I was thinking about today? I was thinking about those street gangs they have down in Los Angeles, those Crips and those Bloods. And I was thinking about that bunch of new laws they came up with in the 1980s, I think it was, to combat those street gangs, those Crips and those Bloods. And if I remember rightly, the gist of what those new laws were saying was, if you join one of these gangs and you're running with them, and down the block one night, unbeknownst to you, one of your fellow Crips or your fellow Bloods shoot up a place or stab a guy, well then, even though you may not know nothing about it, and even though you may have just been standing on a street corner minding your own business, what these new laws said was, you're still culpable. You're still culpable by the very act of having joined those Crips and those Bloods in the first place. Which got me thinking, Father, that whole type of situation is kind of like you church boys, ain't it? You got your colors, you got your clubhouse, you're, for want of a better word, a gang. And if you're upstairs smoking a pipe and reading your Bible, while one of your fellow gang members is downstairs fucking an altar boy, well, Father, just like those Crips and just like those Bloods, you're culpable. Because you joined the gang, man. I don't care if you never did shit, you never saw shit, you never heard shit. You joined the gang, you're culpable. And when a person is culpable to altar boy fucking or any kind of boy fucking, because I know you guys didn't really narrow that down, then you kind of forfeit the right to come into my house and say anything about me or my life or my daughter or my billboards. So why don't you just finish up your tea there, Father, and get the fuck out of my kitchen?
Oh, I love that scene. I do. That's how I felt. I felt like it was being said on the big screen. I heard it and I was like, "Oh my God, that's exactly what I've been saying for years, but not in such an eloquent way."
Right. It is pretty eloquent. My mom's name was Mildred.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Right.
And so was my grandmother's name. I was like, what? It's like of all the movies that you could have pulled out of all the world.
So bizarre. You have a lot of those strange similarities that we can't quite explain, Penny.
Right. I know. It's a thing.
Right.
The other day I was talking with Heather, who's on, I've now put her on every other Friday. We're talking about putting together a group for trauma. And I'm talking to her and she's talking to me about her best friend. As soon as she says her best friend's name, she texts me. And I'm like, she just texted me when you said her name.
That's neat. That's like a God nod.
It
my
is.
opinion.
So
I think it's cool.
I just, I was looking at that going, oh my God, her name is Mildred. But yes,
like
we
that
were
too.
also in the Catholic Church. And, I was raised in the Catholic Church. And about 11, my mother had divorced my father because she was gay to begin with. She was gay her whole life. So why did she marry my father? But, and now I'm finding out all the things that happened. And at one point when I was in the church, Tara, and I got my first Holy Communion, I ran away from the church. They had to drag me back in there and to do my first Holy Communion. And then my mom says to me, you need to give you get this white dress, right? Because you're marrying God, which I actually think you're actually marrying Satan. That's just my thing. And so so they say, my mom says, you have to give the dress back. And I'm like, what? And she says, you can't keep the dress. And I was like, okay. But I had to give the dress back in the nunnery and the priests were there. And Tara, I can't tell you what happened because I don't know. But I do know that the altar boys altar boys are traditionally raped, and they also drink the communion wine. So they get drunk. And I think this is also grooming for them. There's many movies that have been made about the altar boys and what happens to the kids when they get older. And, and this church, which is so satanic and has raped millions of boys and girls throughout the world. And the Vatican has been protecting these priests and moving them from one juncture to another. So, yes, I had that question for Jack. I put it wrong. Okay, so I'm apologizing for putting it wrong.
Yeah.
But, just because you're Catholic doesn't mean that you agree with everything regarding the Catholic Church. It was a institution and a religion that you were brought up in. Maybe you don't ever question it, but I'm saying, hey, dude, start questioning it because the Vatican pretty much runs everything.
Yeah. Question everything. Anytime, if like people that read the Bible, and they should read, if they read something that's disturbing, they should pursue it and question it and ask God, because what King James did too. Okay, so that like in the New Testament, the stories in there, they're very vague about if you look at the entire Bible from beginning to end, there's very little that Jesus is actually involved in that book. Like his red letters are a small portion compared to the whole book. Okay. And what they did was the church, they took little pieces of stories and put it in their book. Okay. So that's why when you read it, it doesn't read like a book. It's so random, kind of like put together. So it's not like you can follow it very well because it's so confusing, and then they changed a lot of the stories and left out a lot of the stories. And so if you go back and you get the original documents, and the Catholic Church has all the documents, but the documents, there have been people who have kept these documents, and these documents have been hid by God. And so those documents tell the entire story of Jesus. It's is so different from what you read in the Bible. Like,
I think some of
you would
them
be
have been destroyed too, Susie. I think that during the World War
They
with the
tried to.
Vatican, yeah, I think
They
they
tried
took
to
some
hide
of them
them.
and just gave them
Mhm.
wrapped up fish with them, and gave them to fishmongers. I mean, I don't know,
Well,
but I have a
there's
feeling.
two gospels. There's like two gospels called the Gospel of Peace and the Gospel of the Holy 12. And the book of Pistis Sophia. Those are some books that everybody should read. Now, the Bible does talk about some other books. The book of Enoch. It talks about the book of Jasser.
Yep.
And those books were taken out of James's versions, except for the Ethiopians' Bible supposedly has Enoch's book in it. And then the Catholics have other books in their Bible than the Protestants have in their Bibles. So, I mean, it's a pick and choose kind of thing, for religions to pick and choose what they want their people to follow
Like
or
going
believe
in
in.
Golden Corral.
Huh?
It's like going into Golden Corral.
You pick what you want to eat. Yeah.
That's right.
So if you really want the truth, okay, you're going to have to go back to where the truth was and get those books. And then because they pulled out of those books and then they altered them the way they wanted their religion to go. So that's you have to go back and start research. And then there is a lot of stuff to go back. That, like, one of the old documents they came up was called the Book of Judas Iscariot. That was
also a book of Judith, but I think that's in the Bible.
no, the Book of Judas was found not that long ago, and it has a really interesting thing in it. I really love. It says Jesus tells Judas, I know from where you came. You come from the Orion constellation. So he says that Judas comes from the Orion constellation. And then Judas says to Jesus, I know where from you came. You came from the realm of Barbello, which in the Gnostics books is the mother god. Barbello is referred to as mother god. And so there's a difference between the Orion and Barbello, the realm and the constant, so in the King James does talk about the Pleiades and the Orion in the King James Bible too, but it's very vague. So
Yeah, it goes into the Mazzaroth. It's in Job. Because
yes,
the Mazzaroth is the zodiac. For the Christians out there that don't know about zodiac, God has his own zodiac. It's called the Mazzaroth.
right. So, and then in the Pistis Sophia, it talks about how Jesus went into the realms and he changed these dials so that the people who do black magic, will not accomplish their works. That like 6 months out of the year they'll be right, 6 months out of the year they'll be wrong. So they won't achieve their demise
The
against
dark powers.
people. Yeah, about good.
Every time you say
Against
piss of Sophia,
people.
I'm like, is that a book that Sophia wrote when she was pissed?
She's
That's
pissed,
just who I am.
right? Okay, so Pistis Sophia means Sophia means wisdom, spirit of wisdom. Sophia is a Greek word for wisdom, and then pistis means power. So powerful wisdom. That's what the book is called, Powerful Wisdom. So it's 147 chapters, and it's Jesus talking to his disciples with the inner information that the most people don't have, giving them it's talking about reincarnation and what happens when you die, how you're judged, where you go. You may have to go to spiritual jail for a while. You come back. You may have demon attachments that are born with you when you come back. He describes all that stuff in the Pistis Sophia books, and how the cycle of life goes. It's very detailed, and I mean very detailed. Talks about being cast out into the outer darkness of ice. Talks about being burned in fire. Maybe some people go there. You might go there for 11 years and go to hell and burn for, and then they burn off all your bad stuff. And then you come back a pure, you've been tried through the fire like gold, and now you're going to come back good again, start all over, get another chance. Let's get it right this time.
Mess it up again.
I mean, how many times you want to go to hell, and then come back, I mean, it's just, or, maybe you skip hell and you just come back, so that's all in the book there. So it's a pretty good book,
Have any of you ladies ever heard of, just this past couple of years, I have been acquainted with a group here in town, and they were teaching something called the Kingdom, and it was taught originally by Pastor Miles Monroe, and he's no longer with us. And I'm going to tell you, it's a really fascinating look. It's all about the teachings of Jesus, but it's not a religion. They're very, very clear on the fact that, and these people, a lot of them were Christians originally. And when you start learning about the kingdom teaches you how, I believe it's probably the closest thing to what Jesus wanted us to know, how amazing we are, the powers that we have, but they treat the planet like this is the kingdom and this is what we are given. And it's really, really fascinating. It's really the one thing I've gotten into. And I have a wonderful friend, Penny, Roberto Purpose Man. He did a show with me, and he walks and talks this. He's fascinating. He's enigmatic. He lives this kingdom
That's his
philosophy.
actual name, Purpose Man?
That's his.
I know that book. I think, isn't it called Kingdom Purpose or something like that? Or
Well, he just calls himself Purpose Man because he's
Okay.
like a life
I know
coach.
who he is. He was a black man, right? Miles Monroe.
Miles Monroe
Yeah.
was he was a Bahamian pastor. Yeah, he died on a plane crash back in 2007, unfortunately. But I mean, if you go to YouTube and listen to some of his teachings, they're very inspiring. They're
I'm
wonderful.
listening to him. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, they're great because I don't fit into a box, like a small, narrow, like you can only believe this, where the kingdom really kind of opens things up. And I don't know, it's another option, right? It's another path someone could choose.
It's all about putting it all together. So, somebody's going to have a little bit here. You're going to take a little bit of that information and a little information here, and you're going to put your own information together for yourself.
That's
so
exactly
everybody
what I
has a
have.
little piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. I always say, just, when people ask me for advice, I say, well, here's a path that I would say maybe might be good for you. But I always say I'm the little shepherd, Shepard. I follow the big shepherd, Shepard. And I would suggest that you have your personal connection to God, because I don't know anything about you. I don't know what your mission is. I don't know what your life is, but God does. So, establish that personal relationship. And it's my personal belief that the religiosity and the religious institutions don't encourage you to have that personal relationship with God, because they want to tell you what their interpretation is of what God's telling you. You don't need any intercessors. You just go directly. If you were working for a company, why would you go to the underling who's underneath you and ask him for advice? Wouldn't you go to the actual president of the company and say, hey, what's going on here? So go directly to the Most High and ask, what is my mission? What should I do?
That's right. Ask the Father.
Right. That's what I do. Talk to the Father. And my opinion of who the Father is my opinion, and everybody has their own. But I see him as a spirit that is really not connected to this world, but we can connect to him, and he can connect to us and help us. And so that's why Jesus said, you don't know my Father, you never knew my Father. And because it's not the same Father that I think that everybody is telling us that it is.
Yeah. Like
He's
Kenneth
a good
Copeland, Copeland, and all the tell lie evangelists that are making financial gain and are like demonic for sure. I think that they're just a simple continuation of the Pharisees. I don't believe that anything's actually changed throughout history. And I think that Jesus was trying to tell us about that. Dude, look at these people. They're in there raping and selling children and pillaging you and mind controlling you, and nothing has changed.
Right. I mean, there's Jesus in what little bit you do have in the New Testament, what Jesus says really sheds a lot of light on a lot of stuff, because it's really contrast to a lot of the stuff that you read, actually. So they don't give a whole lot of what Jesus said and did, but they give you enough that he can start to question things, you know. One of the things I was going to talk about earlier, but we got onto this, which is the better subject, I think. I wanted to just share this one story, like when I was little, and I think I was about 6, and my mom was on her second husband at that time, a guy named Bob Phillips, who was Jewish, and his parents lived down in Fort Lauderdale. We grew up in Akron and Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and all that area up there. We took a vacation down there when I was 6. My little brother was a year and a half younger than me, and there's this scripture in the Bible that says that even your enemies are that of your own household. So, people wonder why sometimes your brother, your sister, maybe your mom, your dad are literally your worst enemies. They're
sure.
not, Jesus warned us about this, right? In that scripture. So I'm 6 years old, and my mom, and her husband, they want to go down and visit the people in Florida. So we drive down there to Fort Lauderdale. And when we get there, they pull in the driveway, and my brother gets out and he takes off running. And I get out and I'm chasing him, and he runs through like 3 backyards. And then he gets down, he starts digging this hole in the ground, and he pulls a spoon out of the ground. He said, "I left this here in my last life."
Wow.
And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, I'm 6 years old. I'm like, what the hell is this supposed to mean? Like, I left this here in my last life. And he
Was your brother
right
just messing with you? That's something my brother would do. Like, he'd bury it the day before and then, come and tell me that it was from, and I'd believe him because I was 6 years old. Do you think it really was from his past life, or was he just messing with you?
No, he really did. I think because I called it the evil spoon, because what happens next? So we go back to the house, and I'm in the backyard, and he runs around in the front yard. Meanwhile, he takes his spoon, he's digging up all of Grandma's flowers in her front of her house, digging them all out. And I'm in the backyard, and then he couldn't say Suzanne, so he called me Ooh Ann. And so he goes, "Ooh Ann, ooh Ann." And so I come around the side, and he says, "Will you hold this spoon?" And so I take the spoon.
I know that one. You just got framed.
I got framed. So, hold this spoon. I have to go use the bathroom. So he runs in the house, in the front porch, gets Grandma and my mom, comes out. Look what she did. Look what she did with that spoon. And there I am holding that damn cursed spoon from his past life. And I get blamed for digging up all the flowers. I'm 6 years old. Now I'm the villain of the family because I got framed. And I'm like, and then, so 2 weeks I got grounded for that. I didn't get to go to the beach. I didn't get to do anything while we were in Florida. So I got him back. We got back to Ohio, and we were in the car waiting for my mom in this little gift shop, and we were bored. And so I wasn't trying to get him back at this moment, but I went out and I got this little rock. And I said, let's play while Mom's in there. So I tossed the rock over to my brother to catch it. I kid you not, the rock went right through the window, left a perfect hole in Mom's brand new Thunderbird. Or I don't know if she had a Thunderbird or a Mustang. Brand new car, a perfect hole. And I'm like, oh my God, I just broke my mom's brand new car, And so I said, Tim, hurry up and change places with me. And and I'll tell Mom that I broke the window. So he's like, okay. So we switched places. Mom comes back and said, look, Mom, he threw a rock at me. It went right through the window. And he got grounded for 2 weeks. He never said a word. And I'm like, we're even. And then 20 years later, we told my mom, oh yeah, Mom, remember that? She's like, no. I said, yeah, he did the garden. I did the rock.
Well, ladies, I want to thank you all.
God had a sense of humor, I think, to do that rock perfect hole in that window. So it's like, thank you, God. There is justice,
There is justice in the world. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on this show consistently. Susie Q, I love you. Karen, Britt,
I love you too. Love you guys.
They can find you where, Karen?
They can find me on the elasticarmyband.com and on Facebook on the Elastic Army Band Live Talk.
And Tara, where can people find you?
My show Sacred Valley is on Rumble and on YouTube, and I'm really big on Twitter.
You're really big on Twitter?
I love Twitter. I'm big, meaning I'm there a lot. I'm not a big person. I'm a nobody in all these places. But
I'm
I love
nobody
Twitter.
too. Nobody knows who I am
Yep,
except for
that's
the
okay.
CIA
I like
and the
it that
NSA
way.
and the White House and DARPA. They're all watching all of us now. I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for being vigilant and whistleblowers on the Awake Nation. My name is Penny L.A. Shepard. On behalf of David Zublick and myself, we'd like to invite you back tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 9 to 2 Eastern Time, to join us on the Awake Nation. And we are out of time, so we are out of here.
God bless.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye for today from the Awake Nation with co-host David Zublick and Penny L.A. Shepard. We invite you to join us live on Rumble Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us for the Awake Nation News, 1 hour all news, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern.
Followed by 4 hours of one-on-one interviews with influencers who defy the mainstream narrative.
The Awake Nation, the truth with a shot of espresso.
On behalf of the Awake Nation, with co-host David Zublick and Penny L.A. Shepard,
We thank you for watching the Awake Nation and ask you to join us again Monday through Saturday.